Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev and this week we are talking about the best years of our lives. This movie was released in 1946. It's got a pretty lengthy main cast. 7 people. So we've got Myrna Loy as Millie Stephenson, Dana Andrew as Fred Derry, Fredric March as Al Stephenson, which is Millie's husband, Teresa Wright as Peggy Stephenson, which is their daughter, Virginia Mayo, which is Mary Derry, which is Fred's wife, Cathy O'Donnell, who plays Wilma Cameron in this, and Harold Russell, who plays Homer Parrish in this movie. So, I'm going to try not to screw up too many of the names and mix them up in this, but I will try to do my best. So, we've got the start of the movie is Fred, Al, and Homer returning home after World War II has ended. All 3 were in the service. Different branches. Fred was an Air Force bomber. Al was in the Army, I believe, and Harold was a Navy sailor. So we start with that. They all come back. They're all kind of concerned about returning because they've been gone for several years. They've been gone for several years. 2 of them, Fred, has some. Basically, it seems you kind of learn he has basically PTSD. He keeps having dreams about stuff that's happening and nightmares, and it just has stress about it in general. And Homer has lost both of his hands in a fire on his ship that he was on. So he's got mechanical hooks that he can do basically everything, and he talks about that. He makes jokes about that he wants everybody to see him as normal. He tries to point that out very quickly that he can do everything, and he does basically. But it's still one of the hurdles that he kind of works through over the course of the movie. Al comes back relatively normal, though he does have some trouble adjusting. His kids are grown up now. He just is kind of a weird. He doesn't seem comfortable with his family anymore. But anyway, they all go their separate ways at the beginning. Soon thereafter, they all join back up together. Fred, Al, and Homer all end up at a bar together. Homer's uncle's bar the same night because Al wants to go out and have fun after, wants to go out and be around civilization, be around other people. Homer gets upset with his family about the hooks that he has, and he feels that they're treating him weirdly, and he ends up leaving. And Fred is trying to find his wife, who he's told by his parents has moved out of their house and is now working in a nightclub. So they all end up at the same bar, and they all drink together for seems like several hours. They all close the bar, basically. And Fred ends up staying with Al, the Stephensons, Al and Millie and not Wilma, Peggy. And it's kind of, you start to see some of the happenings of how Fred is dealing with the PTSD. Peggy kind of helps him through that one night, basically, like, comforts him after he wakes up in a nightmare. Then it moves on. We kind of move on, and we just kind of move through these different. We watch them all have their various coming to terms with how things are now. Fred goes and finds his wife, who initially, seems to love him and love his uniform. She loves how he looks in a uniform. Very quickly, that love turns to bitterness, and so that relationship kind of fizzles out. Al and Millie kind of, I don't want to say they reconcile because they never really had a falling out. They just kind of move through the process of getting him reacclimated. Harold and his girlfriend Wilma, he kind of shuns her away at the beginning, because he's kind of dealing with having the hooks for his hands, or no longer having his hands. And he doesn't feel like anybody is going to treat him the same. He doesn't want anybody to treat him differently. So he's kind of working through that too. So he keeps kind of pushing her away and secluding himself. There's also another whole part of this story where, even though Fred is married, him and Peggy kind of fall for each other. And at one point they end up kissing when she comes to see him at work, and they go to lunch. He ends up kissing her after that, and then this whole thing between her and him and Peggy and Fred's wife all goes through the ringer. They all go out to dinner together, and Peggy decides that she's going to be a homewrecker and break up the marriage because they don't love each other, and that kind of falls apart because her dad steps in. And I've never seen a lot of these, but it reminds me of like, was it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, or there's been several movies where you have like a lot of couples or a lot of different things happening at the same time. A lot of different plot lines going at the same time with different groups of people, and you kind of just jump around and follow them. Now, this one's a little bit different because they're all kind of tied together. I haven't seen very many of those, so I don't know if they are tied together or not. But they're all kind of intertwined with each other in a little bit of a way. But eventually at the end, Fred ends up getting divorced from his wife because she's not a good person, and was apparently seemingly cheating on him the entire time he was gone, and wants a divorce because she doesn't like that he doesn't have any money, and that is the decision that she comes to, because he doesn't make a lot of money. Wow, that made a big difference in the light on my face. Okay, my computer fell asleep. Sorry about that. Anyway, she doesn't like that he doesn't make a lot of money because even though he was very decorated in the Air Force, he works at as a soda jerk, he basically works the counter at a drugstore, making not a lot of money, and she doesn't like that. She wants, rich guy. She wants everything to be paid for, and she doesn't like that very much. So they end up getting divorced. He and Peggy had kind of stopped talking for a while. They end up seeing each other when Homer finally works through all of his stuff and decides to ask Wilma to marry him, and those two end up getting married. Fred and Peggy end up seeing each other at the wedding and then kind of falling for each other again, and that is where the movie ends. Yeah, that's about it. Very quick synopsis of the whole thing. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes, so it's almost 3 hours long. I was not expecting it to be that long, but it moves very well. It pushes through very well, just like the one that I talked about last week, Bridge Over the River Kwai. They both move through very well. There's not like, it didn't seem like there was a bunch of downtime where I was bored. I've talked on here before about how one of the ways that I look at if I like a movie is how many times I look at the time or look and see how much longer is left. And with both of these, I didn't. I didn't at all with the Bridge Over the River Kwai. I did once with this just because I didn't think it was going to be as long of a movie as it was. And I was because I didn't look at the time beforehand, and I was about 2/3. I was about 2 hours into it, and I looked at the time, and it said there was still an hour left, which is fine because I enjoyed the movie. This has a 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb, and sorry, hold on, and a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. It won 7 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, for Fred March, which was Al Stephenson. Best Supporting Actor for Harold Russell, who plays Homer. He's the one without the hands. Best Film Editing, Best Adapted Screenplay, because this is, I think, based on a book, if I remember correctly, and Best Original Score. So an interesting thing about this was, there's a couple interesting things. One, Harold Russell, who plays Homer, he's the sailor who, again, doesn't have any hands anymore. He is one of the only ones to ever win 2 Oscars for the same role in this particular film. He was given an honorary award for, quote, bringing hope and courage to his fellow veterans through his appearance. That was given to him by the Academy because they didn't think he had a shot at winning Best Supporting Actor, but he did. So he won both those. He won 2 Oscars for the same role, which is kind of interesting and really cool. And then the woman, Cathy O'Donnell, who plays his girlfriend and then wife in the movie, she actually met her husband on this film. It was not Harold Russell. It was the older brother of the director, who was William Wyler. His older brother, she met him while filming this in the 40s. They got married 2 years later, and they were married until she died in 1970. So, good for them. You know, that's kind of nice. Not something you usually hear about. Somebody, I mean, you hear about people, work getting together. You're with each other all the time. It's interesting that it's not like the director or anybody else on this film. It's the director's older brother, which is an interesting one. But, yeah. So, again, this was a very good movie. I recommend it for anyone. If I didn't ruin it for you after watching this, if I did, then, you should have listened to the spoilers thing. And this thing is, what is it? It was filmed in 46. So, what is that? 50, 60, 70, 90. That's almost 80 years ago. So, yeah. Yeah. If you... kind of your fault at this point. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think that's about it for me this week. Next week, we're watching The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. When is that? 1948. So we've had a few in the 70s in a row. Now we've got another one in the 40s. So a couple in the 40s in a row. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to watch that one. We'll talk about that next week. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, comment, and I will talk to you guys next week.